Right, okay then, we've cleaned everything up now. Let me just show you what I've done. So as you can see here, I've cleaned up all the body of the actual chainsaw itself. And this is what I was talking about with that little lug there, as you can remember in the earlier video. If you snap that off, that's actually made of the actual whole the chassis. So just be careful that you don't actually snap that off as well. So that's just something to be aware of. Otherwise you've got to make this good and make a new hook there. Otherwise your choke lever won't actually operate. So that's all nice and clean. All the other parts have been actually cleaned. We'll come to these in a minute. But as you can see there, all I've done with these is actually just clean them with some petrol solution. Some old style petrol, and blow it all out with the air hose. I've got the carburetor here now, as you can see. And again, this was all filthy, as you can remember. I just put my fingers over the inlet there and shut up the choke flap there. I had that hole facing downwards, as with the petrol hose connector facing downwards, and I held it in that position and just literally agitated it with a paintbrush and some old fuel, and then just blew it off with the air hose afterwards. So let's bring that over there and move that chainsaw out of the way for the moment. And as I say, I've got a nice clean worktop here, so we're going to want to strip this down now, and I'm going to fit the new diaphragm kits to this and blow it out, and just to make sure that it's all clean. So let's do that now. Right, so we've got a nice clean worktop here to work with now, and what we're going, there's no adjustment on this carb, for example, for mixture or whatever. It's only a throttle adjustment, and this is it here. I'll show you where that is on the location when we put it all back together. This carburetor is a Zama carburetor there, and this one's made in China. And if I spin it round, it's got a C10 identification mark in there. So let's start by taking it apart now. So this is the inlet to the air filter. So I'm going to undo these 4 screws now. Okay, that's the 4 screws out. There we go. Just move that slightly, and that just breaks the gasket seal. And as you can probably see now, lift that off, and inside there, I don't know whether you can see or not, on the side of the diaphragm, this isn't the side that there's fuel in, but there's all rubbish in there, where obviously the air filter was letting by certain stuff. So that's that. So let's put that to one side there, and then we have a gasket and a diaphragm on here, which looks like they're both going to come off together, maybe. There we go. Just lift that off. And there's the gasket and diaphragm together. Let's just separate that. The gasket goes on first, and obviously the diaphragm second. So there you go. The diaphragm actually looks alright, to be honest with you, but I'm going to put that to one side. Like that. And now inside here is where we have the little needle float under that little arm there, and that's held in by that Phillips screw there. So I'm just going to undo that. You haven't got to take that screw right out, apparently. Let's get a smaller screwdriver. Make sure you've got the right sort of screwdriver with this screw, because you don't want to chew it up. So I'm just going to undo that now. Be careful, there's a spring underneath here. I don't know whether you can see that there. As you undo that screw, it releases that bar. You ain't got to take it right out. And that just means then that bar can move away from the base of the screw there. And then that will drop out if you ain't careful. There you go. You can see then, just lift out that little jet underneath it. Can you see that little needle jet? Just lay that to one side, and don't forget that screw there as well, that spring there as well. So that's all part of that assembly there. So that's that out now. You've also got a very small jet there as well, which you want to take out and possibly blow through. So again, make sure you've got the right size screwdriver on there, and just crack that little jet. and unscrew it. And put that down. Now we should be able to see through that. Well, I've just held it up to the light and I can see through it, so I don't know whether you can actually see it there yourself because I've got a black background, but I know that is actually clear. So again, put that to one side. Now I'm going to spin the carb over now and remove this big screw here. Again, just cracking that center screw and undoing it. Put that to one side, and again, this might be stuck with the gasket, so just try and lever it up there. This one's free, and then just pull that to one side. Put the carb down for a minute there, and as you can see there, there's another gasket and diaphragm on there as well, which you can just prise off. There we go. And as you can see there, there's the gasket and diaphragm, and just lay that to one side as well. So I'm just going to give this a good squirt in with carb cleaner all through the little jets and all the orifices, and I'm going to let that soak for a little while, and then we'll come back to it and then we'll start assembly. Now in here as well, you've also got a little mesh filter which you can just hook out there with either a picking tool, or that sometimes has some rubbish underneath it as well. There we go, there's a little wire filter there. Just lay that down to one side, and as I say, all we're going to do now is just spray that with a carb cleaner solution on both sides. And also down the inlet tube. Be careful when you're doing that, because you might get some in your eyes. Look, if I squirt it in there, see it coming out of another jet on the side. So I'm just going to let that sit for a while, and let's take a look at the new kit which I have here. I'm just going to let this soak for a bit longer, and because I've got an airline, I'm going to gently blow this out with an airline as well. So if you haven't got one, just let it soak, and then obviously try and blow it out yourself. Failing that, make sure the gasket faces are clean. As you can see, there's a little bit of residue on there. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that now. Right, okay then, so I've given this a little blowout now with the airline. Not too high pressure, by the way, just a nice little low pressure. And let's start reassembling it. So first of all, I'm just going to lay that new filter in there. Just lay it in there, and I'm going to take a drill piece and just gently push it into place. And I'm not pushing in hard there. It does bottom out, so you'll be okay. And as you can see now, that's a nice new gauze installed there. Right, here's our clutch assembly. As you know, this is our actual clutch shoes here, which create the friction when these little things open up when the engine spins faster and faster. And these grip onto this outer wheel, which is normally just spinning freely. So when the engine actually turns faster, it grips this wheel, which turns this bell housing, so to speak, which then turns your blade. So I'm just going to give this a bit of a clean out with some brake cleaner. Don't do this with WD-40 or anything like that, because you need the friction in here. So this has got to be really spotless, and there is loads of grease in here actually. So cleaning it out with a brake cleaner will do the job. Okay, that'll make sure that that's nice and grippy, and also do the same with the actual clutch mechanism and all. Right, okay then, so that's that. So our clutch is ready to go back in now, and let's start the reassembly. Right, okay, here's our main body, and we can start reassembling the clutch mechanism now. And first of all, put in the gear that goes onto the actual wheel. Just turn it until it makes a location. We then put this spacer washer in with the word top facing uppermost. Make sure you take your brake off like I've just done there. Otherwise that band there on the outside, which is your brake, you won't be able to drop this on. Put your clutch on, which spins in an anti-clockwise direction. Don't forget. And then tighten up. We've got our paracord in the plug hole. Means that we can actually turn this until it's tight enough. There we go. Drop our little bearing on there, and also I'm going to lube that bearing as well. Some grease, so make sure that you do that. There you go. Just put a little bit of grease on that bearing there to dry the excess away. And drop your bell housing back on. Noting to line up that little mark there with our gear, which is up there at the moment. There we go. That's back on. And put your last clip over the top and replace our circlip. There we go. And that's all back on now. Clutch is back on. So all I'm going to do, now as you can see there, that spins pretty floppily in there, and that's the old one, don't forget, and it should face that little green little mark there, but I'm just going to wiggle it out, hopefully pull it out in one go. I don't want to leave or anything here with a screwdriver in case I do some damage. So that's it out of the grommet there, and that just means I can just spin it round and hopefully pull that oil filter out, or fuel filter out, which is going to be replaced anyway. There we go, it's just falling off, look. So just pull that out. There's the old, very stiff that pipe. Just tip it upside down. There's the filter, and there's that old pipe that was in there. Let's put that one side. So yeah, we got a new filter on anyway, so we're going to be replacing that. So I'll put that to one side with the old pipe. Tank looks pretty clean inside, so I'm just going to replace now with the new pipe and the new filter. So again, I'm going to be pushing that through there. Stick it facing up first because obviously I want to get the new filter on. There we go, that's fully on. And then just drop that into the tank and make sure it spins around the correct way, and you'll know that when that arrow's pointing up there. So just try and leave that into place now. This can be a bit tricky. Now they do say try and do it without using a screwdriver, but I'll give it my best, but I'm going to have to resort to using a screwdriver, I think. Just being careful. Well, this is easier said than done. There we go, it's going in now. Very, very tricky to do that without a screwdriver. And as you can see how much tighter that one is compared to the other one. But as you can see inside there, look, I'm hoping I've not damaged it. I don't think I have. And that is the correct location of that one. Again, this is the oil tank one with the oil filter in there. And again, the spout here, as you can see, seems to point up towards that little dot there. So I'm going to be able to pull this out. I don't think, does that come out? Yeah, the actual oil pipe does come out through the bottle as well. The filter comes out through the bottom, so that's that in one go. Well, so far I haven't really seen anything to see why I've got an oil leak problem, but I'm going to replace that anyway. So put that over there. which again is a brand new one. Plonk that on there. Make sure it's right on. Like that. And again, whack that in there. Like that. You might have to sort of angle that till it goes up through the body. And that will be that way up. And I'm going to try and manhandle this one in place now without using a screwdriver if I can. And that one, I must say, goes in a lot more easier than the petrol one. So, as you can see, that's now installed. And again, that's facing upwards. So is that little green hole there. So that is that now installed. So I'm going to turn the chainsaw on its side now. And I'm going to locate the oil feed. As you can see down the bottom there, I'm going to guide that tank in. The oil feed pipe comes through there, and that will push in place over that grommet there. And that's what I'm going to do there, is just make sure that's right in. There we go, that's that one in place. Again, I'm going to be dropping that one in the right way up. And this one tucks underneath that arm which I was telling you about. Drop it through there, make sure it goes in properly. And underneath. And it faces, as you can see, upwards that way. So that's both of them in now. I'm going to replace the flywheel. Just seat that on there. And tighten it up with its nut. Which in this case is a 1/2 inch. And don't forget, I've still got the paracord in the flywheel in the spark plug hole. And that will enable me to tighten that flywheel up. Like this. Now I've done that, I can remove that paracord now. There we go. And I'm now going to attempt to replace the handle, which is which goes on, I think, somehow through here. The brake goes there, I think. It goes somehow through there. There we go. This can be a little bit fiddly by the looks of it. Just got to be pushed in. Again, these are a little bit tight, but I suppose it's come out of there, so it's got to go back in. And just sort of push and they pop through. They sort of shrink down and pop through a lot. There you go, that one's in. And the one at the bottom there, I might be able to help that one along with some grips by just sort of spanning somehow in there and pulling together. Yeah, like sort of in there like that, and pull. See it coming up? Nearly through. Look. Just get a screwdriver in there just to help the leading edge forward. There we go. There we go, just popped in. That was the hardest one. And you needed them. That's them in. Now we take that thing out for the carb, what I blocked up the other earlier on, to ensure that everything was clean inside there. And we'll get the carburetor. Okay, and there's our fuel way there, as you can see. I'm going to put that on first. Quite firm that, so just be careful. Make sure it goes right on. Yep, that's gone right on now. And then sort of manhandle it into place. Then you can push that fuel line on with your finger now then to get right the way on. And then you've got to hook up that throttle stop there. And you can do that by just moving the throttle stop a little bit. If you open that throttle right up, you're able to just drop that cable over the top there. I don't know if you can see that. Let me pull the throttle now, you can see how it operates. Can you see that in there? Look. And you open the throttle right up by holding that down, and you're able to just shoot that little loop over the edge. So that's the throttle on. We then locate that pipe in there into its original hole. Now don't forget we've got this little clip to go in, so tip that in there like that. That then slides in a hole in the shaft like that, and then push it in through that end hole. Lift up that and drop the bar back in the C joint. There we go, and then clip it back in. So your choke mechanism then, once it's bolted back, will work, as you can see there, look. Okay, let's get the air filter hose holdall. Now don't forget, that is a rubber seal around there, and that goes in that little rubber seal there. So because it's a rubber seal, I'm just going to give it a lubrication in case it decides it wants to pull out of the groove. So just do that, and then just push it home, and then replace the two nuts that came off. Like that. Right, okay, then let's put the side casing on now. Goes there. And that hooks over there. And this was the T27 Torx bit. Right, okay, so we haven't got a new air filter, I'm afraid, so we're going to have to put the old one in, but I have cleaned it. We're also going to replace the outer cover and then lock it in place. There we go, that's that. I'm going to drop the caps back in again. Just put them back on. Haven't got no oil in it yet, or fuel, so put that little ball mechanism back in its holder there to ensure that we don't lose the cap. And drop that back into the fuel tank like that. Just push home these blanking grommets into the suspension mounts like that. Okay, that's them all back in. Now as you can see, now we've got a lovely clean chainsaw now, and all I'm going to do now is just replace the chain and the bar. Bearing in mind I've got the bar here and a brand new chain. I've left the guard off for the moment, the chain guard, and also the bar, because I just want to show you this bar and what happens when you possibly got a blockage problem where the blade isn't getting lubricated. Now you may or may not be able to see this at all, but I'll show you anyway. This little groove here, as you can see, look, can you just see that? That's got loads of rubbish on the end of that, look. See, just dripping off there. And this can be one of your problems of your oil not actually getting lubed around the chain. And the reason being is because you've got these little holes here, as you can see in the end of the bar, and what happens is when you clamp the actual bar in place, let me show you, as you can probably see on the chainsaw there, when you actually put the bar on, now look, it will go on this way, don't forget. Now you might see at the top there, you've got this little slot there. Now that little slot has got a little hole in it, and that's where the actual oil comes out of. So once you clamp this on place, this bar, these two mating surfaces, or this hole at the top here for example, this one here, is where the oil gets fed in, and then it pushes through into the actual groove there. So what you've actually got is a hole. I think you can see the stator there, look. You probably can't see it, but in there is an actual hole right in that little slot there that marries up with this here. And I can prove that to you by getting a little piece of wire here. I've got a guitar string, and look, I'm going to stick it in that groove. You watch. Can you see it? Yeah, look, it's in there, look. Can you see it wiggling about in there? And that can be another reason why your chainsaw is not oiling the bar. So make sure that your groove is actually clean. I'm going to give this a good clean, so I can still see some rubbish in there. And two, that hole there isn't actually blocked, because then you won't get no feed to your chain and it won't get lubricated. So I'm sure you can see now that there is where the oil's coming out. So I'm getting oil to here, and now I've got it back together. Let's take this outside now, give it a start up without the actual chain on, and hopefully we should see oil pumping out of there. So let's go and do that now. Right, so here we go. It's going to be a cold start, this obviously, but let's shut that door for a minute. So I'm starting out without the actual bar on, because I don't want to do any damage, and we want to prove that our oiling system is working okay by making sure we get oil drip out of there. So let's get this into the choke position first of all. And oh, that went to fire then. With these Stihls, you put it on full choke, pull it, and if you hit fire once, and then you take the choke off down to the next setting. So that's what I'm going to do now. There we go. Can you see that? Look. Can you see the oil dripping out of there? So we now know that we've got our lubrication back. Alright, there we go. Right, okay, now you can see that's working. Now I'll just show you that's working, because that's where I was holding the blade. Look, and I can sure you can see there's a lovely coat of oil there to show that the actual blade is doing as it should do and the oil is working fine. Well, there we go. I'm well happy with that little repair job, and for the sake of stripping it down, it wasn't really too much of a hard job, but I'm sure you can see that we went through everything methodically. We cleaned everything methodically, put it all back together, and we actually proved that it was working at the end of the job. So there we go. Hope that was of some use to you if you've got one of these MS170 chainsaws. I'm sure there's some other Stihl ones around the same sort of thing. I've got the same sort of system on this, and I'll see you again in the next video. So until then, bye for now.